What if I told you that in this video I'll be interviewing the authors of Children of Time, the Wintery Flame trilogy, The Bound and the Broken, Threadlight, The Children of Gods and Fighting Men, the Vagrant series, and The Gauntlet and Feast Beneath. Well, this weekend I went to FantasyCon and I had one mission, to try and interview some of my favorite authors and also get some books signed. So without further ado, let's jump into this vlog/interview video and make sure to stick to the end to see which books I got signed and how to get access to my interview with booktuber Bookborn and indie author JC Duncan. Alright, let's jump into it. Alright, first day of FantasyCon, here we come. So we arrived yesterday and we met up with lots of authors. We had drinks with Ryan Cahill, Shauna Lawless, JC Duncan, and Michael R. Miller. Lots of fun. So we're now walking over to a hotel to have breakfast with Ryan Cahill and Matt from The Broken Binding, which is going to be really fun. We then arrived at the hotel and had some absolutely lovely breakfast. Or I just had breakfast with Matt and Ryan and Emmy and my wife, obviously. The Broken Binding has something really exciting to announce later tonight, which I'm really excited to see. So my plan is basically to just find authors, ask them these three questions. What are their top three favorite fantasy series? What are their favorite depiction of dragons in literature? And also then just ask, why should we read their books? After breakfast, we picked up some coffee from a McDonald's, and before I knew it, I was chatting with lots of different authors. Hi everyone, I'm here with Adrain Tchaikovsky. So Adrain, what are some of your favorite fantasy series?
I'll say Becky Chambers' series that starts with A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I think is called the Wayfarers series. Yep. Those are really good. Emma Newman's Planetfall series. It's been a little while since we've had a new one of those, but those are absolutely fantastic. They get better and better as it goes on. Aliette de Bodard's series that begins with House of Shattered Wings is absolutely superb.
Oh, well, there are so many, but I would, off the top of my head, Robin Hobb's Live Ship Trader series, I really love. Terry Pratchett's Discworld, obviously, and they're not really a series, but Guy Gavriel Kay's books, the two that he wrote about ancient China, I also really am obsessed with. So.
Great choices. What about you, Peter?
Well, at the risk of being dull, I would say Robin Hobb's Live Ship Traders or The Fitz and the Fool Farseer trilogy. I mean, definitely. Otherwise, at the risk of being a sycophant, I would say some of Jen's books. You know, Copper Promise trilogy.
I think I'm going to go with His Majesty's Dragon, Temeraire. Naomi Novik is one of my absolute favourites. The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne is like one of my biggest inspirations. And then I'm going to be really generic and say Wheel of Time, because I just absolutely love Wheel of Time. Yeah.
Some of my favorites, my absolute favorite, top one, is Mistborn Era 1. Not Era 2, just Era 1. Stormlight Archive, I know it's kind of lame because two Sandersons in a row. And I also really like the Lightbringer series, even though there were some things I didn't like towards the end. But
okay, well, the first one would be Lord of the Rings. I think that's kind of the classic one, and it's certainly the fantasy series that got me into the genre. Yeah. After that, I would say Broken Empire by Mark Lawrence. Yeah. I think that's probably the first series that really got me into grimdark. After that, it would probably have to be Game of Thrones.
Favorite fantasy series, very easy. The Bazlag series by Chana Miéville is spectacular, kind of foundational for me. It's there's nothing else like it. The Earthsea series by Ursula Le Guin, I think is underrated in terms of the impact it's had on the wider field, and also is just you can't fault it really. I think the Gormenghast series by Mervyn Peake, which I'd count as fantasy. It's very kind of gothic, noirish, not noirish, very gothic, very high fantasy. It's those three.
So do you have any favorite depictions of dragons in fantasy?
Dragons. I really like the dragons that are in the Earthsea books by Le Guin, because they're very clever dragons, but they are kind of genuinely awe-inspiring, majestic, dangerous feeling dragons. And there's a scene where Ged has a face-off with one of these dragons out over the sea, which is still one of my favourite individual scenes in fantasy.
Oh, well, again, there are loads and loads, obviously, but Robin Hobb's. But genuinely
Are brilliant, for sure.
Yeah, the way that she uses dragons in that series in particular, and how she kind of introduces them via the world building, all of that stuff, because you see the dragon's life cycle and all that. I just think she does a really incredible job.
I think the first dragons I came across were in the Anne McCaffrey Dragon Riders of Pern, like way back, which was, again, pretty great and a bit different at the time.
I think my favourite is, so Anne McCaffrey's Dragonfly is fantastic, just because it's a totally different type of dragon. Obviously, Temeraire is amazing, but I think my general favourite is in Game of Thrones, because I like the kind of the wild feral beast type dragon in it that we don't see a lot in fantasy. Because I think as soon as for me, when a dragon talks, I just lose a little bit. I don't know why. It just doesn't always work for me. So yeah, definitely that.
The Hobbit, Smaug. Just so much raw power. Yeah, love it.
Well, I mean, obviously Game of Thrones is the obvious choice there. I read a book, Dragon Mage, which is an indie book. Yes, that's right, yeah. And I really enjoyed that as well.
My favourite depiction of dragons in fantasy literature, so this comes back to the Earthsea series, Ursula Le Guin. The depiction of dragons in the Earthsea series is wonderful, because the dragons there are like truly magical and apart. They're not part of the ecosystem, they're not really understandable. They are a different thing. The dragons in Ursula Le Guin's books are magical, truly different.
So which readers would love your books?
I mean, I write a big old range of stuff, so I've got hard sci-fi, I've got space opera, I've got epic fantasy, I've got a lot of stuff in between, so hopefully most readers will find something in my back catalogue that will suit them.
Well, I think everyone would love my books, especially Pete. Pete really loves my books.
I think they're great.
But yeah, anyone who likes diverse modern fantasy should give them a go, I think.
What about you, Peter?
I think people who like things that are a bit sinister and weird and are quite fast-paced would like my books. So that's what I'm going to say.
Like, my books are just basically written for anyone who just really adores classic fantasy. For me, what I wanted to capture with the series was the feeling that I thought I would get when I went back to read my favourite books from when I was younger. So I tried to write the series that would give someone the feeling I was looking for when I went back to read the books that I loved when I was younger. And when I did go back to read them, I was always a little bit disappointed because the nostalgia kind of painted them. Yeah, anyone who loves classic fantasy, really. Classic epic fantasy.
Well, my book is historical fantasy. So I think readers who liked maybe like the Last Kingdom series, but hopefully anyone would enjoy it who likes mythology as well. And it's Irish mythology, and not a lot of people know much about it. So I think it would be something different as well.
Anyone who just likes a bit of action, and a bit of action fantasy, the book, The Gauntlet and Fist Beneath, the first book, it starts with a sword fight in a lightning storm, under the bones of a dead god. It's big, epic action fantasy. It's kind of intricate world building. So it's for anyone who just loves that kind of scope and scale in fantasy and wants to dive into a new world.
The day ended with the Broken Binding having a party and announcing the Broken Binding Press, which will be a small press focusing on indie books, and their first book will be Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill, which looks amazing. They gave out 3 signed posters and I got 2, so I might do a giveaway of some sort. Then awards were handed out, and then there was a fun karaoke at the end of the night. Alright, I'm back home. It's time to show you which signed books I got. But first, if you want to access my interview with the booktuber Bookborn and indie author JC Duncan, then I'll add that to my Patreon. Going forward, I'll be trying to add some extra content to my Patreon, but obviously my book reviews and videos will always stay free. But if you want to support what I do here and get access to some extra content, then you can access my Patreon for as little as £1. But I just want to say a special thanks to my patrons who support what I do here. I really appreciate it. Alright, let's talk about books. So the first book I got signed was The Warrior by Stephen Arion. I read this is an ARC copy. Stephen was super kind and chill, and he even personalized it and wrote To Viking. Very cool. Next up we have An Empire of Black and Gold by Adrain Tchaikovsky. I'm very intrigued to check this one out. This is one of his biggest fantasy series, and I've heard a lot of great things about this one. And look, he even drew a bee in the book. The third book I got signed is Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill. So this is an ARC copy as well. And as you can see, he wrote, To Johan, enjoy the watermelon. The reason why he wrote that in the book is because we were having breakfast and I was eating watermelon when he signed it, so yeah, that's quite funny. And the fourth and last book I got signed is Bonds of Chaos by Zack Argyle. So this is also an R copy. Zack wrote a very kind note in this book. For Johan, a good friend and a great person. Thanks for all you do for the community in indies. And then he wrote a quote, Who said we were heroes, and his signature. Thank you very much, Zack. So these are the 4 books I got signed. I had a great time at FantasyCon. I want to say thank you to all the authors who were willing to do interviews with me. And thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.